To celebrate the launch of Seraph Team back in 2020, I planned for a dual release of the deceptively simple Nightwalk and Rainforest Rally, two games that would define the team's identity from then on. Nightwalk is here, but where's Rainforest Rally? In my dev cycle, I tend to put about a month's worth of work in, and then I'll lose steam. I'll take a step back and reevaluate the project. I'll ask, is there merit to the project? Is it fun? Does it make the player think or excite them in any way? Does it represent anything? Upon a brief revision, unfortunately, the answer seems to be no. The story is too light for people who like stories, the gameplay is too shallow for people who like gameplay, and it's too short to warrant the amount of time spent on its mechanics. It's time to tell you the truth. Rainforest Rally isn't actually a game about animal photography, but a remake of an old horror game I made called Just You and Me. I decided to do this because I felt the idea of building a subversive horror game around animal photography still had potential, and the second chance would let me realize it. I also had assets I could reuse, as well as one of my favorite monster designs. As we know now, I failed. However, every failure is an opportunity to learn. Today, we're going to metaphorically dissect Rainforest Rally, and we're going to see what went wrong and how we can improve. Alright, so right out of the gates, here's the big oops. I now realize that Rainforest Rally was doomed from the start because Just You and Me has inherently terrible design. Why? Because I designed it when I started out developing. Back then, when I designed games, I designed them solely on my vision alone. I tended to have snippets of ideas. Sometimes they'd be scenes, gameplay concepts, and story elements. Then, I tried to build a cohesive game around them as I developed it in the engine. This might work for something like a painting, but not for games. You see, a vision is an untempered idea. It's low information. Video games are very high information, and they need a little bit more planning than just what you have in mind. For example, the entire justification for having the photography mechanic in the first place was so I could focus your vision on the giraffe scene for the big reveal of the monster. With the skill I have now, I thought that I could resolve many of the game's issues, but since its design pillars were flawed from the start, I couldn't make it very far. This is the difference between my game Escape the Room, which I consider a success, and Project Beach House, which I consider a failure. The goal behind Escape the Room was to deconstruct the idea of a room escape game. This worked because since the start, the lens was on gameplay. Project Beach House, my first game, was really different. Its goal was to convey the story of Dan and his father. The gameplay ended up being a gross mayo salad of mismatched survival horror ideas. I designed it around things that I wanted rather than things that I needed. What if he breaks his leg here? What if there's a turret that blocks your path? Never, hey, maybe a complex stat and crafting system doesn't belong in an adventure game, especially when we only use it once. You can't just do whatever you want. You can't just do what you think would be cool. You can let the process take over sometimes, but you also need to know when to grab the reins. Enter the modern Rainforest Rally. At its core, the goal of the remake was to make a really solid monster-based horror game with a cool fake-out. You think it's a puzzle game about photography until you hit the 3/4 mark and the monster shows up. At the start, a lot of the planning time was spent justifying the story and gameplay elements required to achieve this premise, where if they had merit, they would justify themselves. Also, by reusing assets, I also incorporated their problems, mainly with size. It's hard to tailor a map to accommodate a small, slow player in a large, fast monster. Because I didn't get my act together from the start, I ended up programming a lot of mechanics, like switching players, that were never even used. So we'll put this one down for now, which is fine. As an artist, you need to know when you're putting more effort in than you'll get back out. I apologize to anyone who was really anticipating it, and if it helps, I'm going to break it down and use the things that I learned in future projects. So, future projects. I currently have 2 games in the works, and this time I'm not telling. Now I can sort of respect that the dev cycle is volatile, and there's still a chance that things won't work out. But these next 2 ideas I'm pursuing should demonstrate a significant improvement in my ability. I think I'm finally getting the hang of this. But this time, I'm inviting you to come along for the journey. I'm going to heavily document my dev process for my next title from start to finish. I'm going to try to maximize my efficiency, and hopefully we're going to learn something together. And let's just say dev starts tomorrow.